Metroid Prime 4 needs Halo like co-op. What? Let's get into it. Yes, I know every Metroid game is a single-player game, with the exception of Hunters and the 3DS game that nobody wants to talk about or bring up ever again. I have played every single game in the series, starting with Metroid on NES, Metroid 2 on Game Boy, Super Metroid, my favorite, on SNES, Super Nintendo, Metroid Fusion and Metroid Zero Mission on Game Boy Advance, Metroid Prime 1 and 2 on GameCube. Holy crap, 2 was like extremely long. Metroid Prime 3 and Other M on Wii. My favorite of the Prime games is Metroid Prime 3 because of the motion controls. That opening sequence with your ship was so cool, and fighting awesome Ridley falling down the shaft with motion controls was so epic. I'll never forget that boss fight. Metroid Prime Hunters, my least favorite, and Metroid Pinball on DS, Metroid Samus Returns on 3DS, Metroid Dread, and Prime on Switch. Wow. That is a lot of Metroid, and yet I am super excited to play Prime 4 on the Switch too. When I was a kid, I even made Samus and her badass ship out of Legos. I cannot wait to play Prime 4, and it is what sold me on getting a Switch 2 day one. With that said, I do wish the Prime series would add co-op and online multiplayer so the franchise could reach new heights. Currently, every Metroid game sells less than 4 million copies. And if you look at other Nintendo franchises that sell 10 to 60 million copies, it really makes you wonder why Nintendo keeps making them. Here are some ideas I have for the franchise that to help it hit that 10 million mark. 10 to 60 million. Let's just start with 10 million and go from there. Alright, the first thing I'd like to see added to the series, like we just talked about, was split screen and online co-op. Now, the franchise has never been about co-op. Halo has big open areas, so co-op works really well in that game. However, Metroid is more corridors and mazes. The franchise is all about being on an alien world and it being in isolation. Kind of like a slight horror aspect, if you will. To me, it was always a grown-up version of Mega Man, both in gameplay and how it tells the story through its world and atmosphere. Until we got to Mega Man X, and then they actually had a storyline. In order to hit that mainstream in order to hit the mainstream and help the franchise blow up, it needs a social aspect. Now, how this could work in the world of Metroid is they could have Samus. They could have her find a new artifact that makes a clone of her as she needs it. This would allow drop in and drop out co-op, and it would make sense to the story. Just like in the Halo games, when you play split screen co-op in the very first game, you're just two Master Chiefs, which was really fun. So everybody was Master Chief, and then further on throughout the storyline, they added the Arbiter and they added other characters, so it made more sense story-wise. But in the first game, it was just two Master Chiefs, which was really funny. They could have doors that require both players so they can prevent one another from speedrunning to the end of the game. Another way they could approach this is have a tethered system where both players have to stick together and work together to find hidden upgrades, armor, rooms, bosses, etc. The world would really have to be tailored for either solo or co-op play. Rooms would have to be bigger, bosses more complex, etc. If anybody could pull this off, though, I believe Nintendo could do it with Retro Studios. I feel like they're very talented, they can make this work, and other games have done it. So, with Nintendo's master class in game design, I would love to see them do this. Alright, the second thing would be the obvious online competitive multiplayer component, PvP if you will. Have all your typical modes like Lone Wolf, Teams, Capture the Flag, Battle Royale, etc. Then they can have Metroid ideas tossed in, like one player plays as a big Metroid and the rest play as soldiers trying to survive. Not necessarily Samus, but you know, the soldiers that are in the game. They could also have stuff like Prime Hunters, but with actual good controls, not those wrist destroying stylus controls, that break your wrist. Now, the third major thing they could do to keep the fans playing until the next game finally drops is a Forge-like mode, like in Halo 3 and beyond. That Forge mode, it would allow players to go nuts and build levels and game modes just like in Halo. This would make the game last well beyond a typical Metroid game. This would also help it hit those super high numbers like in Mario Kart or Animal Crossing. And with the new mouse controls, they could really go nuts with this, the community. If you've ever played the Halo games with the Forge modes in it, a lot of the game modes that got made up for newer games in the franchise came from the Forge mode, came from the community. Imagine what the community could do if they had all the assets in the game to make levels, heck, and anything. They could literally just do whatever. It would be super fun. One last thing I'd love to see added to the franchise is vehicle combat. Give us some badass ancient Chozo vehicles, or let us use Samus's ship for the first time ever in an actual fight. They could have it be tied to a special meter for the story mode that limits the use. But for online modes, let us use it like Halo vehicles. Hop in and hop out whenever we want. The drawbacks or limitations would be obviously that if you're in a deep labyrinth or structure, you couldn't use it. But if you're out in the open, then it's free game. So those are my ideas to take Metroid Prime series to the next level. Do you like my ideas, or am I way off base here and Metroid Prime should stay single player experience forever? Now, if they don't want to add this to the mainline games, they could always go the Kirby route, where they have those separate little games that you can download for pretty cheap, and it's like they're just like their own separate little games, like Kirby Cafe or Kirby Battling, where it's just like a little fighting game. They could just have like a multiplayer Metroid Prime game, basically call it Metroid Prime Hunters 2. They probably call it Hunters just for the sake of it. It probably wouldn't be a remaster or anything, because if they called it 2, then people would be like, do I have to play the first one? I think that's why Metroid Prime 4 is just called Metroid Prime Beyond. I don't think there's a 4 in there. So that way people aren't like, oh, do I have to play all the other ones? So they could go that route too, and I'd be okay with that. Like, it could be, I mean, I don't want it to be free to play, because then that would mean there'd be a ton of microtransactions. But it'd be cool to have some sort of multiplayer Metroid game to really get fans invested in the franchise, to really have it blow up and go mainstream. Currently, Metroid is literally a niche, I want to say it's a niche franchise, which really sucks, because it's one of my favorites on the system. Right up there with Pokemon. I love Metroid. Pokemon's obviously my favorite one because, let's face it, Pokemon's huge. But I really like the Metroid series. It reminds me so much of Mega Man, and Mega Man reminds me so much of Super Metroid. Then we never got a 3D Mega Man game except for Legends. I'm talking about like a Mega Man X style game. That would have been cool. Anyway, I blabbered on long enough. Let me know how you feel about all this in the comments down below. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the content, consider subscribing, leaving a like down below. I'm going to try to upload a couple times a day for this channel. It might not work out because I do have my wrestling channel still. I don't want that to just die off, but news is pretty slow in the wrestling world when it comes to video games. So for now, this is going to become probably my main channel, especially if it starts blowing up. So, as always, stay frosty.